Hey everybody, Jen Hatmaker here, your very happy host of the For the Love podcast. You guys, welcome to the show. I mean it. Welcome to the show, and I'll tell you why. Today we are kicking off our very first series of 2023. I almost cannot believe it. I just can't believe it. And we thought long and hard about this one. This was my idea. And we have been workshopping it with the podcast team for months because this is how I wanted us to gather together at the beginning of a new year. And this series is called For the Love of What If. You know, this question energizes me. We've got an amazing lineup of guests coming your way to help us evaluate and contemplate and even move on those types of big questions that we have, like, what if we quit our job and went for the dream, right? What if we up and moved to some faraway place? What do we do if we chase our dreams and fail real hard? What if you took a chance? Look at that thing you think you can't have or be or do. What if you did it, right? I love this. I love being in the realm of possibility. I think you're going to love these conversations we're having. And our hope is that you just take in this series feeling inspired and encouraged to even just gently explore the what ifs in your own life. You guys, I could not possibly start this series and this year out with a better guest. I really couldn't. She is a new friend of mine, but feels like an old friend. You know, when you meet people like that, I've of course known of her for years because she's just a powerful person in the world. And even as she walks on the earth kind of gently, I don't know how to explain it, but then I met her face to face when I was at Me Camp last summer in Grand Marais. Way, 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 way up north in Minnesota, because that's where she lives. So today we have Jenna Kutcher on. You know her. She is a fellow podcaster. Her show is called Goal Digger, GOAL. It is the #1 marketing podcast in the entire country. Okay. I love Jenna. She is so dear. She is smart and successful, but she cares about all the right things. This is how she describes herself. I'm a digital marketing expert, self-education mastermind, book writing, data-obsessed algorithm avenger, detail-loving self-care activist, stubborn as heck achiever and individualist, small-town puppy parent, frequent flyer, margarita mixologist, and official pancake flipper for my happy fam of 4. I love her. Jenna is very into creating a life that you don't have to pretend to like. Isn't that great? Just constantly helping women dream up ways to get to where we want to be, where we can be. And she actually thrives in the what if question, in the sense of potential. And we're going to talk about this, but Jenna was in a windowless, stuffy corporate office with a 5-year plan that somebody else created for her that she didn't even want, when she bought a camera off Craigslist and created a 7-figure empire. It's a whole story. You're going to have to hear it. So really, genuinely, if anybody knows the power of what if, it's her. Jenna has a kind of Tell It Like It Is book out that came out recently called How Are You Really? And it's this insanely helpful guide to outlining your vision that's true to who you are, and what matters to you, what you value, what's important to you in this life, in your relationships. And she kind of wades through all the crap that we're taught or handed about just always hustling harder, getting up earlier, making this spreadsheet of a plan that you're locked into. She kind of debunks all that. And she gets us to the core of the thing, the beating heart of what we are created for, honestly. And what we have to offer this earth and how we want to live on it. And so if by chance you leave this episode today feeling motivated, if it lights a little match, to sort of get out there and ask some new questions of your life, your choices, your path. Jenna has a very handy quiz on her website to help you find your secret sauce, right? Like the thing that makes you stand out. So let Jenna serve you in that way. Let her guide you, because I really believe she's done something right. I look at her life and I go, I like this. I like it. I like what you've chosen. I like what you've traded for. I like what you've said. I'm not going to give my time to this. I just think she's a really good teacher. She has something to teach all of us, no matter where we are in our what if journey. And so she's absolutely delightful. If you don't already know her, you're going to be so excited today that I introduced you to the absolutely marvelous, warm, generous Jenna Kutcher. Thanks for being on the show. We're new friends. We met in person this summer when I decided to come live where you live for a month. And we just sat outside at Java Moose in our little sweatshirts. And I told you this, I wrote this to you, I think, but I immediately knew, like, oh, yes, I like her and we are going to be friends. You know how we just know? Yeah.
You know, it's crazy too, because when you're in this world, you've met a lot of people where you don't get that feeling. And so I came home and now you're just like a household name, because it's like, oh yeah, Jen. And I think that's special too, because a lot of times in our world, and kind of what we're going to talk about today, when you take leaps of faith, it's really hard to find people that can kind of match you step for step and at least understand where you're going. So
you're 100% right. I've done this long enough to now kind of know that's not a given, and it can even be kind of rare. And so when it happens and there's like a little bit of magic, I'm like, yes,
hold on to it.
Yes. Okay. So I have already told my listeners a little bit about you, kind of your background, and but if we can we kind of walk it back a little bit to the beginning of your career, back to the time that you were in a dreary corporate office. I mean, it feels sad in my ears. So can you talk about how you got there?
Yeah.
And then what were the like internal signals and maybe even external saying, this isn't it? Like, this isn't it. This isn't what I meant to do. This isn't what I want to do. And then walk us through those early, like, I mean, you just kind of went for it. You're like, I'm going to buy a camera. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to buy a camera. So just let's start there and then let's funnel it.
Let's go. So when I went to college, I thought that I wanted to do PR. This was the days of like Lauren Conrad, The Hills, PR world, where I was like, I want to go work for Kelly Catrone. And I went to school, studied PR, and ended up getting an internship with Target. And I love Target. Yeah. And especially being from Minnesota, Target is headquartered in Minneapolis. It is the creme de la creme in Minnesota. And I was so lucky to have this internship in a store. And basically then they extended this job opportunity. So I'm like, this is awesome. I'm finishing up college. I've got this job. It's all mapped out. I'm going to end up working in headquarters. We're going to move back to Minnesota. The plan is created. And what was really incredible is when I think back to even when I was in school for business, the successful women were wearing power suits and high heels, and there's very few of them. We did all these case studies on different companies, and like, there was no women.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, like, someday I want to wear a power suit and high heels, and I want my husband to stay home with the babies. And like, I want to get home and dinner's made. And so that was like the vision of success to me, right? Like, that's when you made it. And so I get out of college, I get put into a store. I'm wearing red and khaki on the daily. And I am a couple years into this, and my boss sits me down, and my boss was a woman, and I thought she was amazing, and she is amazing. And I remember looking at her desk, and she had this picture of these two little cutie blonde kids. And she never really talked about her kids much. Like she kind of had the boundaries up. She was the boss lady and like, here we go. And I remember just looking at her picture and being like, tell me about your kids.
Yeah.
And I almost saw this like pain in her where she was like, you know, if I'm lucky, I get home in time to give them a bath and put them to bed. And I remember even in that moment, I didn't want kids for myself, but I remember just thinking like, oh, is this really all it's cracked up to be? Like, yeah, she has the corner office here. It still doesn't have windows and she doesn't get to be with her kids. And in that same meeting, she handed me my 5-year plan. I remember this visceral reaction because basically she presented me, here's what we have planned for you for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, nobody asked me what I wanted. And it had all of these stepping stones were things I didn't want. I would have to do logistics and wake up at 4 a.m. I would have to work harder. And yes, I'd earn more money, but I was like, nobody asked. Like, this doesn't even sound good. And so I remember going back to my office. And here's the thing, Jen, I did not know what I wanted, but I knew what I no longer wanted.
Totally.
And I feel like that has been the thing for me because we see all these like amazing, encouraging things. It's like pursue your passions and you'll never work a day in your life. But like a lot of times, who has time for passion when you're working 10-hour days or commuting or like who even has hobbies anymore?
Yeah.
And so I had bought a camera on a whim because I was planning my wedding to Drew and we couldn't afford photographers for everything. And I love documenting things. Like I am that person who like goes through people's wedding albums and just like relives their days, whether or not I was there. And I was like, I'm just going to learn how to use it so I can take pictures of my DIYs. I can take, you know, and that ended up becoming this passion where I was like, oh, wait, I am a passionate person. I am curious. Like I am learning again. And people were booking me to take pictures of their cats and boudoir sessions and anything that a camera could take. And I remember the first time I got paid $100, I felt like a millionaire. And I was like, this could be a thing. And that's how it kind of all started.
So I love that. That gives me a deep muscle memory because 100 years ago, I was a teacher.
Precisely.
That's what I went to school for. I had an English. I was going to teach, and I went into the classroom and realized pretty quickly, it's kind of what you said. I just knew there are so many things about this that I don't want.
Yes.
It's ill-fitting. It feels like an ill-fitting suit. And I felt constricted and I felt like I was trapped. I could not leave my classroom all day. I couldn't have a doctor's appointment. Like
could barely go pee.
I tried it on and I realized that it didn't fit. And so, I remember the earliest little rumblings in my head where I was like, I see some other things that I love. I think I might be good at it. I'm not sure. Nobody is asking me to do this work. Nobody is presenting me with an opportunity to get paid for it. That's for damn sure. But I feel a rumbling inside of me. And so I want to talk to you about that little window because you kind of brought us up to that point. Like you've got $100 check. I mean, how could you spend it all? How?
Right.
Like, how could you spend all of $100 anywhere? And something about that creative work was lighting a fire in you. It felt very different from the logistics and the data and the 4 a.m. And so can we talk for a second about right there where something's not fitting?
Yep.
Something else is vaguely on the horizon, but it's very ill-formed. It is absolutely fuzzy. It doesn't have any guarantees, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay. So what's interesting, and I don't think a lot of people know this, is that it took me an entire year to go from I have a camera and I made $100 to I can leave my job with security.
Totally.
And I am the person like, here's the thing that I think is so fascinating, especially with our culture today and the great resignation and women leaving the workforce and all of these amazing things that I'm like, yes, we need to do it. We are so quick to abandon what got us somewhere. And instead we could leverage that thing to get us to the next place.
I like what you're saying.
I realized like, okay, So I don't want to do this 5-year plan, but maybe I do the 2-year plan, the light version, the 1.0, while I build up what could be the next thing. And so there's a story in my book about how I jammed the laminator at work. So here I am working 10-hour days. I am dreaming of photography. I find myself now as a bride planning a wedding. And so I'm in this wedding world and I'm realizing like, I love these photos. Oh my gosh, I wonder if I could take these photos. So this is pre-Pinterest era. So I made this collage of photos in a Microsoft Word document and I printed it off on the fancy work printer.
Sure.
Because why would you not laminate something? I jammed the laminator. And I remember the next morning, I like go in, I'm like looking for the manual. I'm trying to like unclench the jaws of the laminator because there's this document inside with wedding photos and it says photos by Jenna Lee on there. I mean, there's no denying.
The gig is up. Yeah.
And so I tell the office manager, Kathy, I'm like, Kathy, I'm so sorry I jammed the laminator. And she's like, oh, and so she starts prying it out. And there's all these wedding photos. And I was like, okay, do I tell her? Do I not tell her? It's like, I felt like I was riding 2 Clydesdale horses going in opposite directions. I was living this double life. So I finally tell her, I'm like, hey, like when I'm not in the office, I love photography. And her eyes lit up and she was like, I love scrapbooking. And so that was the first time where I admitted, like, I think I'm going to go for this. Like, I am not just hiding this thing anymore. I think I'm going to figure it out. And so I ended up booking weddings and shooting on my weekends off of work and figuring out how can I have the safety and security? Because here's what I've learned, Jen, and here's something I think not a lot of people talk about, especially when we're so creative and multi-passionate, is if you do not have safety and security, creativity is really hard to muster up.
You're right.
But a lot of people just abandon things and then they're like, oh my gosh, I have to take any money that will come in, and they find themselves doing things they don't love, right? It's not what they thought it was going to be. And so for me, I was like, how do I find safety and security first? And then how do I put in my 2 weeks notice? And so I built this business behind the scenes while working my secure job so that when I put in my 2 weeks notice, I was like, I'm going to give this thing a year. And if it doesn't work out, I have a degree, I have experience, and I fulfilled every job obligation so that they would take me back in a heartbeat. And I'm like, no one's going to fault somebody for saying, I had a dream and I went for it and it didn't work out exactly how I thought it would. Would you take me back if you do a good job?
That's good. It's this combination of like dreams and innovation and even hubris and responsibility and reasonability and practicality. Like there is something in there that where you can do both. Because I think you're right. Sometimes it's this feast or famine idea. Like you either go out in a blaze of glory and you skywrite in the sky, I quit. You've seen all these big stories, and you just go out on a limb. You don't have 5 nickels to your name, but let's go. Or you just stay in this place that kind of robs you of all your vitality because it's stable. But you're right. There is something where you don't necessarily sacrifice either. This third way that is wise. I would call that wise.
Yeah.
That's
I remember too.
Like, I mean, we have bills.
My parents are like, okay, what about insurance? What about a 401k? And it was like, I had to have all of these answers before I was like, I'm abandoning this job I thought I really wanted. It's like,
totally.
I think we got to find that middle ground a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. All right. It's a new year, friends. And I have one thing that all of us who wear bras need to resolve. Wear one that isn't terrible. Yeah. Like no slipping, pinching, poking, gaping, showing through clothes. Although easier said than done, right? It can be a real gauntlet to find a bra that checks the box on support, comfort, and function, and that looks good. So I have your solution to the age-old bra problem, and it's called Third Love. They've spent years designing bras for every single body. They make more than 60 sizes and even invented half cups, so you always get the perfect fit. Third Love has so many options for every outfit or occasion too, from little lacy numbers to everyday t-shirt bras, wireless sports bras, specialty stuff too, like plunge or strapless or nursing, whatever you need. I've pretty much converted all of my bras over to Third Love now, and have no motivation to wear any of the others. Also, did you know that your bra size can change 6 times or more throughout your life? That's why Third Love makes it easy to find your perfect fit with their virtual fitting room to find the styles that are perfect for you. And you'll never get stuck with a bad bra again because their returns and exchanges are free for 60 days. So ditch bad bras. Get a better one that makes you look and feel great. Upgrade your bra and get 20% off your first order at thirdlove.com/forthelove. That's 20% off your first order today at thirdlove.com/forthelove. Something super popular to talk about this time of year is New Year's resolutions, of course, but I can tell you something. I've really never been a resolutions girl. I love them in theory, but in practice, it's just really never taken hold. It feels like a lot of pressure on top of already feeling a lot of pressure because life. So what I like to do is this. I think about areas of my life where I want to turn the dial just a little bit, like just adjust and recalibrate and set a small intention, maybe learn something new. Perhaps that's how you're exploring the new waters of 2023 too. If so, I'd love to invite you to check out my Me Course series. Me Course is my e-course series designed to help you show up better for yourself, for your family, and really everyone else. It's inspirational, it's educational, and it's actionable. Really, it is for all of us, and it's content that we can really use to create the change we want. I'm always joined by the most amazing category experts in everything from finance to wellness, faith, content creation, cooking, parenting, and more. Each Me Course is on demand with 4 15-minute-ish learning videos along with digital resources, additional bonus videos, and so much more. Plus, you get access to our private community of learners. Explore more about each course and check out the incredible savings at mecourse.org. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's do this. Okay, so you gave yourself a year.
Yep.
You started building this up to something more robust on the side, and then you took it from the side and you put it right in the center.
Yes.
I'd love to hear you talk about those early days. The safety net is gone. Bye,
Yep.
Target.
Yep.
Buy 401k. Bye.
Everything.
Now I put my chips on me and let's see how I do.
Yeah.
And so can you talk about those early steps? Because I'm a dreamer. I left. Now listen, nobody thinks that I was out there making a ton of money as a teacher, but what it was stable.
Yes.
And it was steady, and it was, I could
Consistent.
count on every penny. I knew exactly what was coming in. I knew all the benefits wrapped around it. I could see that could be a viable, steady, predictable career path for as long as I wanted it. But I was like, I want to be a writer, and I want that to be my job. And this is the dumbest thing I'd ever thought in my whole life. I was in my 20s. I had 3 little kids. They were like 1, 3, and 5. What in the world? But nobody was saying, can we pay you to be a writer? I just wanted to be one. And so I remember those early days. I wrote a book that nobody asked for. And I just remember just clawing it out. And there were plenty of moments I just thought, what in the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, what in the hell am I doing? I got babies in their cribs, and I am, this is a terrible idea. And then the early days for me, it took me years to be a career writer. I did not functionally become a career writer by the numbers until my 7th book.
Oh,
7th.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I hung in there past the expiration date. So I would love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah.
When the thing is young, the thing is early, you have a lot of big hopes and dreams for it, but it's underdeveloped.
Yep.
It's not going to be what it's going to be 5 years from now. How do we stay the course? And when do we know not to stay the course?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I am so thankful that I went to college for business and not photography. Because I think that a lot of creative people are so good at their art.
Oh, you're so
They don't
right.
know the science, right? Like there is a
So
science
true.
when it comes to business. And so what's really interesting, so my photography career Within 3 years, I was named the top wedding photographer in the state of Wisconsin,
Wow.
never having taken an art class in my entire life. But here's what I was so good at. I was good at looking at things and saying, how did they make that? How did they do that? How did they pose somebody like that? And reverse engineering everything. And I think that when you look back, it's like we didn't have resources. So we had to be resourceful. Like we were out of college paying student loans. My husband was selling cell phones. And I mean, we did not have, there was no funding. There was nothing that was saying, here's your $5,000 loan, go start a business. It was piece by piece. And so what was really interesting is like, how do we be resourceful? But something that I often struggle with, and Jen, I feel like you might agree on this, is like that hustle mentality, because there is hustle required at the beginning, right? Like,
no doubt.
Absolutely. Like when I look at like burning the candle on both ends, working the corporate job, going home and working on the business, like there is that. But where I think that we've gotten it wrong is that there was never a finish line. We were actually just talking about this before we got on. And for me, what happened is the first year I shot 25 weddings. The next year I shot 27. The next year I shot 30. I was at the top of my game. And yet the day that I hit 6 figures, which had felt like the most elusive goal to me, like neither of my parents had ever achieved that. Like it was just this number. It's like what other people think of as $1 million. I'm like, give me 100K. That's crazy.
Totally.
And I remember the day I hit that as a wedding photographer, I was standing in the shower, washing my hair with herbal essence. And I was like, I thought this would feel different. Like maybe there was a part of me that thought I'd have fancier shampoo and that shampoo would make me happier, or that the angels would sing, or like something would happen. And when I actually checked in with myself, I am burnt out. Like I am exhausted. And so what happened is the next day my husband came home. At this time, he was now selling wine. This guy can sell ice to an Eskimo. So he sold billboards. He sold cell phones. He sold wine. And he comes home and I was like, screw 6 figures. I want to go back to 50. I was happier. I had a life. I had time. And so we made this decision where I was like, money is not the goal any longer. And I think that with hustle culture, it's beautiful because you got to hustle to get things off the ground, but where is your enough point? And where do you start to say, and now I can rest, or like, well done, or like, now I protect my time. And so for me, it was like these scales were tipping where it was like money was the goal. And all of a sudden it was like time is back being my currency, and it switched. And so I ended up cutting back. I went down to half of my weddings, and something insane happened when I did that, Jen. I actually had time again. And when I had time, I realized I'm passionate about other things than just photography. And when I realized that I was passionate about these other things, I started these other little side projects and experiments and side hustles. And all of a sudden my business exploded to a 7-figure thing. I wasn't even in pursuit of the money, but all of a sudden I realized this trend in my life where when I finally give myself bandwidth and time and space to breathe and think, that is when the best things happen. That is when the best ideas happen. The projects start, and so it's been this interesting trajectory because I was a wedding photographer for 8 years. I was a really good photographer. Like I loved my clients, but I didn't want to be in the business of trading time for money. When I saw that there's only so many ways that you can earn money, and most of them require you being gone on the weekends. There's got to be a better way. And
this is so energizing for me because I have also walked through such a similar trajectory of getting what I thought I wanted, having commercial success in it. Like you would look at it on paper and go, oh, you've done the thing. And now that thing is successful by the metrics that whoever says, whatever they say, and crying in a hotel room. And taking these big steps to also change my parameters, to change my boundaries, to say, I'm just not going to do this anymore, even though this is a huge revenue stream for me. I don't know what's going to replace it. I'm not sure if anything will, but this is going to have to shift. And it is the truest thing in the world that allows us to create a different kind of magic. A different, all of a sudden we just are kind of back in touch. Can you talk about what you did next? So you'd cut it down when you said, because you gave us one little sentence,
Yeah.
and we're just going to infer what in the world did you do? You were like,
Yes.
so I cut my business in half. I did a few other things, and then I was
Really
at seven
skilled.
figures. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Wait. How do we get from
Reverse the
100? What something
Yes. Let's
in
talk about it.
there was a pretty
Yes.
major something.
Yes.
So you
Okay.
impetus here. What
Let
happened?
me break you down.
Yeah.
So being in the Midwest, the wedding season was confined from May until October, basically.
Sure.
So I had 6 months of crazy, right? 30 weddings in 6 months. You do the math, that's two a weekend most weekends.
Gosh.
But that also meant that November, I had an off season. And I just had a lovely Facebook memory. I love those suckers. They always just like bring me right back. And it was 7 years ago. And it said, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Would anyone want to listen to me? In my podcast, I would like to X, Y, and Z. And 22 people liked it, including my mother. And I said, that's a sign. Let's go. 22 people. We got listeners. And so that was the first thing. I also recognized, because a lot of photographers were paying attention to what I was doing, and they were like, how did you do that? Like, how did you grow a business so fast? How did you get so known? How did you get and so I said, would anyone want to come sit in my living room and I'll teach you a business for the day? And so I started doing these little mentoring sessions with other photographers in my area. And what was so interesting is that I felt like a broken record, because I found myself teaching the same things over and over and over again. Here's how you do pricing. Here's how you send this. Here are email templates. I'm going to give you everything you need. And so that was when I was exposed to this online world of like, you can teach what you know and you can do it at scale. Like you can create something once and like make an impact on thousands of people's lives without having to push a button. And so I started to learn about nerdy things like this and online education and digital courses and podcasts and all of these different things. And to me, it was so appealing because I was like, I can do this from home. And it was like, I can do this sitting at my chair. I can do this, and so something happened that really shifted things for me. And we had decided for a very long time, we did not want children. So the first 5 years of our marriage, we were like, never. Sorry, mom and dad, prepare your hearts. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden something shifted for us. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like, you've spent a lot of time and money and energy not trying to get pregnant. And all of a sudden you like decide you want it, and it doesn't always happen how you thought. And so I was a wedding photographer at the time when we decided we wanted to grow our family. And I basically had a 3-month window to conceive that would allow me to shoot my entire wedding season and then have a baby and then be back in time. And I was planning my life around my work, right?
Totally.
So the first time we get pregnant, we end up having a loss. So I have to wait until the next year rolls around. The next year we get pregnant, and I had to show up and shoot a wedding with knowing that there was a baby inside of me that did not make it. And I remember thinking, I will never create another job for myself that requires me to not have a human moment that I have to show up for when I can't.
Gosh.
And it was this visceral feeling of like, anything I build from here on out needs to be able to run while I'm resting. It needs to be able to move, even if I'm standing still.
It's really good.
Having that moment and that loss and like that feeling of like, I still got to show up and put on a smile and carry my camera, and like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like that to me made me realize is like, I built this successful business, but it doesn't work if I'm not working.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what unlocked all of these things where I was like, wow, like I can make a difference and be at home on a Saturday, and so it really kind of unlocked things. But what's so interesting, Jen, is like, I was still shooting weddings 4 years ago. So it wasn't all that long ago. Yeah. I was still shooting weddings when I was pregnant with my third pregnancy, which became my daughter, Coco. And I have always taken what's worked for me and leveraged it into what's next, and had that safety and security that I've needed mentally to be creative enough to figure out, and now where do we go?
Oh, man. Those were such good questions you were asking yourself.
Yeah.
And I think this requires us to have both. We're looking at the short run but we
Yeah.
also have to be looking at the long run at the same time and
Yeah.
figure out, how do these meld? How do I do the right now, but where do I want to be in 5 years? Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of that reverse engineering you mentioned earlier. I often start, where do I want to end? How do I want
Yes.
this to end? How
Yep.
do I want to feel? Where do I want my
Yes.
relationships to be? Where do I want to live?
Yeah.
How do I want to live? And then let me back out of that and see what it looks like reasonably and feasibly to get there without sacrificing any of those things, any of
Absolutely.
those goals. And so, I want to helicopter up high. Like, let's come up to the 30,000 foot view for just a moment. Um, and this is your $1 million question. Like, I love that you ask your community this. I love that you have asked it of yourself, that you've done this work, to show like what you've learned, some of it the hard way, and then how you've retooled your life, even at a risk, to get there, which is, do we really genuinely love our lives? Or are we
Yes.
just faking it? Are we on autopilot? Are we
Yeah.
literally just sort of defaulting our way through some sort of prescribed process that we either picked up on, or it was handed to us, or we haven't have been courageous enough to imagine a different way? Which, it's a lot, because that's a big question that requires us to take stock of our lives in a way that feels a little bit daunting and
Yep.
maybe a little bit scary.
Yep.
Because what if we dig around in here and
We
we
don't like it.
discover that we don't actually like what we're doing, or this doesn't feel authentic to who we are, or we're sacrificing our favorite things for the lesser things? A bunch of us would do that work and discover that exact thing.
Mhm.
So how do we know? How do we
Yeah.
know if the life we're living is the one that is meaningful and full and beautiful and right for our little worlds, which are all different from each other? So there's not a template here.
Right.
But can you talk about that
Yeah.
work, and what does it mean when we really examine that, and what do we do with what we find out?
Yeah. It's wild, Jen, because I did not write 7 books and then go on to write 20 more. But I wrote one book, and it was crazy because so much of what I do is in the business space, right?
Right.
And I think I believed for a long time, falsely, that like entrepreneurship is for everyone, because this is how I unlocked the life I wanted. However, the world cannot be filled with entrepreneurs. And I believe you can have a full life if you stay at home with your babies. I think you can have a full life if you work a 9 to 5. I think you
Totally.
can have a full life if you're a caregiver. Like, and I had
Totally.
this realization of like, oh, entrepreneurship is it for me, but it is not for everyone. And it is
That's
not
right.
for the faint of heart. And when I thought about what do I really like, why do I care about doing this work? It was because I had defined success in so many different ways over the years. And every time I landed at those places, I thought it would. I think so many people do that. And you know what we end up doing is we arrive and then we think, surely it must be a me problem. I'm not grateful enough. Surely I like, look at all of these things. I am the crazy one. Maybe I just need more. Maybe I just didn't set the bar high enough. Maybe a little harder, and then it'll feel the way I think. And that's where we just run ourselves into the ground. And when I think about this, I think about like how so many of us, when the house is finally quiet, when the babies are finally sleeping, when our phones are plugged in, when we wake up at 2 a.m. and we ask ourselves, like, is this it? I think that a lot of us, that feeling of discontentment is the friction in our lives that just keeps us running because it's scary to face it.
It is.
It is. And it's like, that's the same reason why we can't even like go to the bathroom without having our phone. Like, we don't know how to be alone with ourselves anymore. We don't know. There's a chapter in my book where I talk about how I used to hate Shavasana at the end of yoga, like laying on the floor for 5 minutes. 1, I didn't feel like I had deserved it. 2, I didn't even know. I would just literally run through a grocery list in my head because I didn't know how to just check in with myself. Right.
Yeah.
And what I think is so interesting is that we're in this culture where everyone is building lives that look really good, but they don't feel good. And what I loved about when you and I met up for coffee is we roll in our sweatsuits and we were both just so content.
Yeah.
And I think that that is so rare because we see the highlight reels and we're like, we've also seen the people that they look really good online,
For sure.
But you talk to them and they're like, I'm a mess. And so for me, it's become this practice of like checking in with myself and like, how does this feel? Not what does it look like or what will this mean to other people, but how does this feel?
It's good.
And I think for women, it's really scary to ask that question because we know if we're honest and the answer isn't that I'm good, that we're going to actually have to do something about it. And I think that scares us because we are really good at doing.
No doubt.
And we're not good at like being and like facing it, all of these things. But when I look at my life and my career, the number one thing that I think has guided me is like that knowing and not drowning it out. And I think for so many of us, it's like the dial on the stereo is up on the world's noise and your mother-in-law's opinion and your neighbor's car and all these things. And it's like, we've got to turn our intuition back up and we've got to trust that voice again.
This is true in every category, not just career.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
This is, I think a lot of us, if we got still, quiet, and honest, can point to a number of scenarios and dynamics where we go, how does this actually feel? Not how does it look? Because those things can be completely unrelated. But how does it actually feel? Is it a relationship? Is whatever it may be, where it's ill, it feels bad. I have a thing, I'm listening to you talk right now, and I'm 48 and I've been at this for a while. So I have learned some of these things primarily from burning out, or failing, realizing like I'm out of my depth here. Like this isn't a good fit for me. I'm not good at this. Or I don't love it. So I've done things a lot. I've false started a lot of ways and it's taught me a lot of really valuable lessons. But, so I'm at the point where almost everything in my life is, it's chosen. It's pared down for, there's a billion things I don't do anymore. And I'm doing primarily what I love, what I'm good at. But I've got a thing, like right when you just said, let me have a look. And how does this feel? I have one thing. I have one thing and I don't like it.
What is it?
I don't like it. I can't say yet because I'm still going to do it. But it's one thing. And I'm like, doesn't feel good. It's the thing. I lay in my bed and I worry about it. I lay in my bed and I wish it was over. I lay in my bed and think, I want to do this differently. Really, to be honest with you, I lay in my bed and think, I don't want to do this at all. And so,
you know, what's interesting too, is that like when we feel like we don't even feel our feelings anymore. And I'm in the thick because I have a 3-year-old. So like there's a lot of feelings, right? It's so interesting because it's like, sometimes we just try to push past that resistance and like, let's just get it to a good spot. And it's like, no. Like I often tell my daughter, like happiness is not the goal. Like you don't have to just like move through sadness or anger or anything just to get to happy again. And I think as adults, like that's what we try to do is like, when we're like, this doesn't feel good. It's like, how do I get happy again? And I'll forget about it. But it's like that calling in the middle of the night, like that to me is the piece de la resistance that we need to get out of our lives.
It is. That's that knowing. That's that inner wisdom that I used to never listen to. I found myself untrustworthy because I'm a hard worker like you. I really can power up and over it. I can. I could do that forever. I can execute. But that thing, that like, this is inner wisdom that I should listen to. Like it's a trustworthy voice saying, hey, this doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good. And you're not in prison. You're not beholden to your own rule you made up. That you have to do this. And so I appreciate you saying that, even though I was just like sitting there listening going,
crap.
Oh, gosh. We are gearing up for February over in Jen Hatmaker Book Club. And let me tell you, buckle up because we're talking sex and pleasure in the month of love. Our featured book is Come As You Are, which is a transformational book by Dr. Emily Nagoski. Trust me on this. It is, oh gosh, you're going to learn so much. We were never taught these things about our bodies or our minds. When you're a book club member, you get so much fun stuff every month too, like a book box with the book, obviously, and a special gift and a love note for me, but you also get access to our private Facebook community to talk about our books every month. You also get a whole bunch of digital resources like discussion guides and custom content, music playlists from our authors, one of our favorite things. And you even have a chance to get on Zoom with me for book talk each month. So for February, we're doing something a little extra special to show our love to you. For anybody who joins before January 5th, you are going to get one of my Me courses for free. Me Course is my e-course series designed to help you show up better for yourself mainly, and then ultimately your family and everyone else. It's inspirational and educational and most importantly, actionable. And I'm always joined by the most amazing category experts in everything from finance to wellness, faith, content creation, cooking, parenting, and more. So head over to jenhatmakerbookclub.com to sign up and select your free Me course. That's jenhatmakerbookclub.com. I want to just ask you this. If you could know then to young Jenna, like what you know now about where your life, your family, your career would ultimately get to, like just where you are today. You don't know where you're going to be in 10 years from now, but let's just say from where you are today, what you've learned. What would you go back and tell that young version of yourself?
Yeah, I would just say, trust the unfolding of your life and trust yourself through the process of the unfolding. Because I think that a lot of times when we're in those seasons that it's like you feel like it's never going to end. I mean, even in parenting, everything totally is temporary.
You're right.
And I think that that's really powerful. And I also just think that time is our currency. And when we treat it that way, and when we recognize that this is the one thing we can't go out and earn more of, we can't get back. The way that we spend our days is how we spend our life. Like, make sure that your day is reflecting where you want your life to go.
Yeah.
I think that that is so powerful, because there have been so many times in my life where I have the vision, I have the manifestation, I have the prayer, and yet I'm not showing up as the person who can handle that prayer or that manifestation or that reality. And so it's like, how do we use our time in a way that equips us to be the person that can handle those blessings that are coming?
I love that. That's so good. Okay. In this series, Jenna, I'm asking everybody in the What If series, this just little, maybe you have something, maybe you don't. Do you have a new what if that you're contemplating, like as we speak?
What if I just lived in the woods as a mom and stopped working? Here's the thing. Let me preface this.
Yeah. Because you like literally living in the woods, check.
Yeah.
With your little scamps, check. So I mean, you're not that far off.
So, and maybe Jen, this is why I love having you in my life, because I'm like, you're ahead of me in this space, but I feel like there are days where I'm like, what if we just packed up? Like, well done. This was amazing. Like, quit while you're ahead and just like be. And then and then the next day I wake up and I'm like, how far can we take this baby? And so I'm in that season of life with little ones, and I'm just realizing how fast it goes. And there's this dumb audio on Instagram right now that says, like, you only have little ones for 4 years. And my oldest is about to turn 4, and I have zero regrets, but there is just this piece of me where it's like, what if we just like hit pause and come back in a couple years? And that's not going to happen. But it's a what if. It's a what if. And I like it, because here's the thing is I feel that contentedness through my bones, where it wouldn't feel like I'm hanging up my skates too early. Like I think that's the beauty of it. Like, just, it feels great. And I am waiting to see what's next. And I'm in that friction of, I don't know yet. And I'm just trying to enjoy it.
I love that. I mean, and in my experience, even opening yourself up to something, to a question like that, to a possibility like that, even just saying, I would entertain the thought means a whole host of other thoughts get to come in with it. So that may skip you over to a different idea that's ancillary, but you opened yourself up to it and went, okay, I'm not going to completely pull out, but what I've gotten to in my imagination is this idea. I love it. I love possibility. I live in that zip code. I'm like, what can we do? What could it be? What could it look like?
What is your what if right now, today, as we sit today? What is your what if?
Because I'm paying attention to your earlier really good North Star question. How does this feel?
Yeah.
I love how does this feel? I'm noticing that with the whole cookbook release and being in this brand new genre, food is a new genre for me professionally. I've always dabbled in it just as a girl, but it feels good. I like it. I like how it feels. I like being in the kitchen. I like talking about gathering. It feels good. So even though I'm like, I'm just burning the candle, it's like, this is so fun. And so my what if right now is around that. What if, what if I follow this to wherever it goes? Well, I don't know what that is, but
I want you to have a cooking show. I'm just putting that out on the record.
What if, just fun. Like, I enjoy that. And I enjoy cooking with my people, like my kids, my siblings, my parents. What if? I'm just kind of in that realm of possibility, following this internal knowing that I like this.
Yeah.
And it's nurturing to me and it feels good. And so there you go. That's the first time I said that.
Invite your audience to DM us their what ifs, and send us a message of what is your what if. And I want for you to pay attention to like when you actually get still. For me, rest takes more work than being busy. Like I have to mentally keep coming home to myself. So if, as a listener, when you close your eyes and you think, what if, your first thought is like, did I take the hamburger out of the freezer for dinner tonight? I want for you to keep coming home to yourself and keep coming back, because it gets easier the more you do it. But send us your what if.
I like it.
Because we would love to see that and just like dream with you. And there is something just like my laminator moment when I told Kathy that I want to be a photographer. There is something so powerful when you finally speak those desires and those words and those thoughts. And so do that with Jen and I so that we are in on your what if.
I love it. Oh, I cannot wait. Oh, I love other people's dreams.
Yes, same.
I just cannot, I'll never get enough of women going for it. Never. Last, very, very, very last question. Everybody gets this, every series, every guest, every episode. Answer however you want. Please, my friend, this can be like earnest and lovely and darling, like Mama in the Woods, or it could just be like absurd. I don't care. We get it all. The question is, what's saving your life right now?
Ooh, okay. What's saving my life right now? So I have been doing all this weird biohacking stuff.
Tell me more.
Like red light therapy, a PMF mat. You lay on this mat and it's supposed to be like grounding energy. It has a bunch of crystals in it. I've been doing some really pseudoscience stuff. And I've never felt more energized. And so I have been focused on energy this year because I'm like 2 little ones, a book, a business, a house build, all these things happening.
Yeah.
So I have been doing all this pseudoscience and I'm going to try to look 23 by the end of the year.
I like this. Listen, I'm a believer in some of the woo woo. So I'm like, let's do it.
My philosophy is where the woo meets the work. Like, how do you have the visions, but how do you do the work? So we're with the woo today.
That's the very best. That's great. Okay. I'm so happy you were on. Thank you so much. I love this conversation and you. I love the way that you're living your life. I love the choices that you've made. I like the questions you're asking. And I think the sort of lanterns that you are following on your path, I believe in those lanterns. I believe those are the things that matter. I think those are the things that count and that last. I think those are the things that keep us in a place of like joy and gratitude. And so just love it. I just love how you're living and how you're leading. And so thanks for coming into my world and bringing your magic sauce.
I mean, you came to Grand Marais, so I'm just grateful you came up to Minnesota.
And
I'm so proud of you. Thank you. This was so fun.
Thanks, sis.
Bye. We love you.
Perfect. You guys, I love starting off the year like that. It's funny. I'm a dreamer. My dreams don't just include getting bigger. My dreams include getting smaller. My dreams include getting a little slower. My dreams include kind of hiving off the good and just keeping the best. And so I think that is what this conversation is so good for. And I'm just telling you that Jen has done this exact thing. If you follow her, you'll see how she lives. She is not subscribing to hustle culture. And I find it refreshing and it encourages me. It actually inspires me and I draw some bravery from it. And so, I mean, as you heard, she asked a question in this very episode that I just sat here and went, ugh. Oh, I know the answer to that. And it's not a good answer. And I'm just going to ignore it, or I'm going to allow what I know to be true and then act on it. Anyway, I'll let you know on that. If you go over to jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, I'm going to have this whole episode, the show notes, all the links to everything Jenna Kutcher, all her socials, her book, her website, where she's got some amazing tools for you, all of it. So you can get that in one place. More to come in this series, kind of like this. And I feel so excited about it. I feel thrilled about my guest lineup, and you will too, as we sort of look at 2023 and ask questions I think that'll matter. Questions that might change our lives, questions that might help us make changes, questions that will help us say out loud some things we already know are true inside. I can't wait to hear from you too. So thank you for being with us in a whole new year. We sure love you. And this podcast is such a joy for us to bring to you and to create for you and to dream up for you. And I'm thrilled to be in a whole new year with you. All right, you guys, see you next week.